and you'll be able to implement that no matter what curriculums you follow. So how many of you have the international curriculum in your schools? That's the Cambridge and the IB or the IGCSE. And how many of you have national curriculums, the CBSE and the ICSE? Great. So it's going to help both, of course. Are we ready?
Hey, thanks everyone for waiting those extra 3 or 4 minutes until we could get started. We are going to talk today about empowering futures, integrating counseling for enhanced learning outcomes. This is the agenda for the day. So we're covering four. I'm going to shut these off. Really, we're covering four key points here and really understanding how to integrate career college counseling, a general overview. And then we're really going to get into the contextualization of that. What does that mean for you? How do you apply that at your school? And we're going to do some best practices from our amazing counselors over here. And then we're going to talk about assessment. So not only how do you do this, why do you do this, but how do you measure that and improve upon it over time? So just as an introduction to our panelists today, my name is Shelly Gazdick. I am the Director of Global Outreach and Partnerships at IC3. I'm not going to do any long introductions because we want to make sure we have plenty of time for discussion. We have Miss Sakina. She's already introduced herself. She's a school leader from Galaxy School in Wadi. And we have Miss Shoma Ma'am, the Vice Principal at Sun City School in Sector 54. 54. And we'll have Dwani coming at the end to talk about assessments. She also works for IC3 on the Institute side, so she does a lot of trainings with schools, and we'll be able to talk about how we help assess schools and what does that mean. So before we get started today, we are going to do a Mentimeter. We want this to be an interactive session. So you can either go to menti.com and put that code in, or you can use the QR code. I will let you guys take a couple minutes before I open that. So, sorry. Hopefully most of you have gotten that at this point. So let me just present in the Menti. How are we feeling? Seems like there's still some phones trying to grab that QR code. Got a couple more, and then we will ask our first question. So that will show up on your screen once you're logged in. I'm getting a lot of thumbs up here. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm going to move on in the interest of time. So the question, we have 3 questions for you. So which aspect of school counseling do you find the most challenging as a counselor or a school leader? Is it academic support, career guidance, personal development, or collaborating within the school? It seems right now kind of across the board, right? There we go. We have a lot that are having trouble with career guidance. We just talked about that for an hour in my last presentation about how to try and help students with career guidance, which can be really complicated, especially if they're looking to study outside their home countries. Collaboration with teachers and administrators and academic support. I think everything kind of ties into each other, right? So we'll get into each of these aspects as we go through. Second question for you guys, in your experience, which group benefits the most from an integrated counseling model? Is it high achieving students, students at risk of dropping out, students with undefined career goals? Seems like most of you are putting all students equally, some of you students with undefined career goals. I think we'll talk about that today. I think all of them have some consideration when it comes to integrated counseling. Definitely undefined career goals is a difficult one to manage as a teacher and a leader. And then our third and final question, I believe, is which of the counseling integrations do you think you need more focus in your particular school? This will help them lead the discussion. So do you need more focus on career and college readiness, personal development, or, and quarterly? I think I missed that one. Just ignore the second one. I don't know what happened to this slide. But yeah, so career and college readiness, personal development, both about the same. And then how often, I think these answers got switched. We're just going to move on. We'll talk about that at the end a little bit. We'll do a quiz. So just as an introduction to the session today, why is career college counseling so critical for student success? And how does a career college counselor how does a career and college counselor impact a student's success? And really, it's these three key buckets that a career and college counselor has influence over, right? Academic support, which you've all identified already, career guidance, and personal development. In the US, we have a system that we call an academic home model, where actually the counselor is at the center point of the school, and they collaborate with the teachers to make sure that they're integrating counseling in the classroom. They collaborate with leadership to make sure that the academic goals are being reflected in the activities that the students are doing to make sure that the school is academically successful. And then they actually interface with the community, right? So not all of us can help every student. And so when we're talking about interfacing with the community, it's saying, where can we help our students find extra support? Whether that's academically, whether that's emotionally, for their well-being, or other reasons. So really, the role of a college counselor and why it's so significant to try and integrate it across the school and not just have college and career counseling land on one person's lap is really to promote the success of students across all three of these areas. So the more that you can integrate counseling in your school, the more impact you have on that student's long-term trajectory. And there has been some, this slide's wrong, yeah. That's okay. There has been some research done here by different bodies that study career and college counseling that really showcase, if you have an integrated counseling model, what does this mean for your school? So improved graduation rates, CIS, or the Council of International Schools, has done a study that shows that it improves graduation rates by 10 to 15%. Increase university enrollment. So students are more likely to enroll in universities if they have support from their school. That was a study by International ACAC. And then high achievements in students, so a 20% achievement in IB scores. If students can connect what they're learning to career choices, then they're more likely to be integrated in school and more likely to understand the model. That was from IB Global Research last year. And then finally, enhance college readiness. So if you're helping support students, obviously, hopefully they feel more ready for school. CIS, Council of International Schools, also reported that 85% of students that were surveyed before having career and college counseling courses versus after felt 85% of them felt more ready to enter the environment. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Shoma and Sakina to talk a little bit about the role of college counseling in schools and what that means.
Okay. So what is the role of counseling in school? So we are going to I'm going to talk more about how we have implemented, but over a period of time, if you see, college and career counseling has become part of the school ecosystem. Earlier, it was a counselor office, one counselor, and student would come to us. We had to have all the knowledge about careers, which is very difficult, right? Today, the whole scene is changing. If you see from a historic perspective, what it was, we never had a counselor in our school when we were in schools. So that changed to having a counseling office. To today, it has evolved. The whole role of a counselor has evolved greatly, right? So I'm going to talk more about how do we bring context or whatever students are learning into schools. So what we have done, I come from a city called Rajkot, which is a smaller city in Gujarat, but we are a school system with 10,000 students. How do we reach 10,000 students, right? One counselor, two counselors, four counselors, it's very difficult. So we did a simple thing. We started like this, one counselor and then this, and the counselor would get exhausted. I started like that with my colleague. But we couldn't reach every child. And I couldn't have so much of knowledge. It was very difficult. So, over a period of time, we decided and we changed the whole scene in our school. We are a Cambridge school basically. We have IB as well and the ICSC as well. So, we said, let's do something different. Let's train our teachers to be counselors. So, we started enrolling. So I was the first one to enroll as part of the IC3 program, 1-year program, and I benefited. And every year, including my principal, is an IC3 alumni. So every subject teacher today is a counselor. So what has happened because of that? So we don't have isolated. So we said, okay, first let's integrate counseling. So we had a curriculum, we integrated counseling, we put it into our timetable, and we were happy. But that was not serving the purpose at all. We couldn't reach all students. So we said, let's change. Let's make all our teachers counselors. So what happens is that a math class has a counselor, not a math teacher. A geography class has a counselor, not a geography teacher. Okay? And what are we doing at the end of every year? We list, and the student lists down career opportunities in each subject. Okay, so in my geography class, we list almost all career options available while I am teaching. The math teacher does the same, the business teacher does the same. Now, this whole process is helping to do project-based learning. And project-based learning is the in thing, right? Where students think from a design thinking perspective. They hone their 21st century skills. So they connect with the community, teachers integrate their subjects in that, and they come up with beautiful products which are useful for the community. So there's a lot of real life connections that they have. And while doing this, all teachers and students have a log to write what skills I have, right? What interest I am now gauging, which subject interest. So all this is happening in 9th, 10th, while the student is listing the interest, the areas of interest, the skills that they are developing. How are they developing these skills? These skills are developed through various opportunities that we create. So from organizing events like MUN, and the child finds a calling. One of my child, he got the calling from participating and organizing MUNs that today he is doing his law. And he wants to get into international studies. So there are a lot of examples like this. I mean, the whole session can go on. Now, after we did a simple thing this year, I'm sure everybody is aware of the Olympic Games. So we created an integrated lesson plan. Every teacher is talking about careers. One event, a world event, and how many career opportunities are generated through this. So from biology class to physics class to psychology class is talking only about careers through Olympics. And we listed almost 20 careers. And students started finding interest. Oh, wow. I can become a sports psychologist, which he never thought. He was a sports person, but never thought of becoming a sports psychologist. Or how can I design? How can I become a commentator? They started writing their scripts. And this January, they organize a mini Olympic in our school, but not for our students, but for the adopted villages around us. Now, that really talks a lot about how the child has imbibed, how we have made learning so important for them, that every class has a meaning for them. And integration of counseling is becoming very easy. So it's not my single person's job now, everybody collectively are doing this. Now, what happens while we are doing all this? There's a list of skills and there's a list of interests that is jotted down. So by the time they come in 11th, 12th, they already have made their career path. The child has already made his career path. Of course, we help them to trim down, we help them, he still explores and then gets into internships or job shadowings. Now that helps the child to really identify whether I can get into this field. No, there is a job versus a career, and that's the difference. So almost, for 4 years with the same teacher who's observing the child knows the teacher, right? So we are called the advisors as well. And we continue guiding the student for 4 years. Imagine how much we know each other and how much we can help each other. So, what we have done at the end, what does this mean? We have empowered them. So, we are not making a chart for them that, okay, this is a career for you and you should go in for. Instead, what we are telling them, you create your own path and empowering two people, one, the teachers, two, the students. And that creates a lot of magic in our school. We can talk a lot, yes, but I would like to kind of ask Shoma ma'am to share what happens in her school.
Yeah. Thank you, Sakina ma'am. So I come from a school where the larger cohort is the national curriculum, so that is CBSE. And CBSE carries this reputation of being old school, traditional, not really a lot of scope for innovation, improvisation. So hopefully, I'm going to present a few case studies that will help break that myth and really showcase the fact that there is a lot of scope for doing a lot of things differently in CBSE as well. So what we do is, as a school for the last, I think now 14 years, we run an apprenticeship program for grades 9th and 11th. For 9th, it is far more generic industries that we're looking at, say, for example, hospitality, retail. But once they come into grade 11th, so then we take them to hospitals, we take them to law firms, we take them to accounting firms. And this process is, it's very curated. So every student must submit a CV. For a grade 9th kid, it will be what have they done in grade 8? Have they done any extracurricular activities? Because we also have tie-ups with NGOs, with other skill building bodies where we can place them. Once they submit their CVs, then they are called for an interview. So the process starts very young. It's not just a walk-in for everyone. We then help to bust myths about fields and also give them a flavor of what it means to be in that profession, to be in that industry. It's a 15-day program that runs in the month of summer. So normally school gets off around the 17th of May or 18th of May or thereabout. For grades 9th and 11th, we run for another fortnight whereby they get to experience all of this. Funny story, grade 11 student was doing PCB, wanted to be a doctor. For whatever reason, had no doctors in the family, but wanted to be one herself. So we had a parent who was a gynecologist. She was lucky enough, or she was kind enough to allow us to watch a delivery. They were behind the scene. She fainted. She came back and she said, okay, let me think of another career option. The sight of blood was too much for her. And it is true. I'm sure you've had a lot of students. I think over the last 7 years, especially Harvey Specter, everyone wanted to be a lawyer, right? I think I'm not referencing the wrong person out here. Okay. We also run apprenticeship program. Along with the apprenticeship program, we have engagement with alumni who provide the platform of networking for offbeat careers. So there's a student of ours who is a wine sommelier and has been a wine sommelier, is India's leading wine sommelier. And food and culinary industry is growing heavily, right? And post-COVID especially. So every time we have a session where we are inviting alumni, he draws the maximum amount of students because he is doing something differently. He had the courage to do something differently. And something we must realize as educators, as counselors, as adults in the lives of young students is most of us at this age are still wondering what the hell are we doing. So imagine how difficult it must be for a 15, 16, 17-year old to be asked, okay, what do you want to do for the next 30 years of their life? They don't even know what they're going to have for breakfast tomorrow. And you're asking them to make a career choice when they're 15, 16, 17. So our job is to provide them options, provide them real life options that they can then explore, maybe nudge them, empower them. Because not everyone is also that's deeply invested. You will have in a cohort of say 100, 200, 300, I don't know your school sizes, you will have say 10, 20% who have known from a very young age that they want to be engineers. So they have been going to Fitji or they have been going to Akash or whatever it is. But the majority of them will wake up once grade 12th August happens. When parents are asking, okay, what next? And there are some who will wake up once college happens to them also. That is maybe a 5 or 7%. But everyone in grade 12 feels that anxiety, huge amount of anxiety. Our job, not just as counselors, but also as educators, is how do we take care of that anxiety, right? So another system that we run, sorry, I'm referring to my PPT, is where we run a system of mentorship. So the batch of 2024 who've just graduated will mentor the batch of 2025 because they've just done the process. They've been there, they've written those essays, they've faced those rejections, they have shortlisted the colleges, so they know a lot more about a lot of things than I do or any teacher does. So after identifying where each student is planning to apply, wants to apply, is thinking of, my role will be to connect those dots, and assign say 5 to 6 students per senior. And it will be their job to figure out a time slot, to connect, to even overview essays, to even overview personal statements, all of that. Okay? Next slide, please. Yeah. How I don't know about you, but when I started as a counselor, this was 7 years back. One of the biggest challenges was how to manage the holy trinity of teachers, management, and counselor. We tend to operate in silos. Um, I'm a teacher. I still teach. I teach 11th and 12th sociology, and honestly speaking, for a lot of my colleagues, it's a very fancy role that I have where I get to travel a lot, right? How do you bring them into our side of the job, or rather, how do we go into their side of the job? We cannot be operating in silos where counseling is something and teaching is something, just like Sakina ma'am said. Every teacher needs to be a counselor, right? Your best resource in the classroom. And if there's any university representative, I've said this to them number of times, please try and organize CPDs for teachers, right? Because your teacher becomes your best advocate, your best spokesperson. Imagine if you've done a CPD from a university where they've talked about a very offbeat career. Like I saw this one yesterday, sports, exercise, and something, and sciences. That teacher in class becomes that best advocate for that particular university or for that particular course. So you need to empower teachers, just like Sakina ma'am has been doing in her school. That is something that you need to do for every teacher from grade 9th to 12th onwards. Most teachers will come back with, oh my God, along with copy checking, money collecting, notebook maintenance, attendance register, another thing added, right? There has to be a takeaway for them also. Our job is to show them that takeaway. What is the takeaway? They've done their studies maybe 10 years back, 15 years back, but the field has moved ahead. If you ignite their curiosity, they will spark that curiosity for the students themselves, and your job becomes easy, simply put, right? Mm. Management important again, because you will need to do a lot of things. You will need their support in order to run a lot of programs within school. So for that you need to have management tie-in, management being at your side and supporting you. Also management needs to create that space for teachers, not just for students. It has to be created for teachers as well. If you're calling them in on a Saturday for a CPD, there has to be solid takeaway for the teacher, right? A certification, whatever. Otherwise, it just becomes another box that they need to tick. There won't be any passion involved in it. Yeah. So, like Sakina ma'am said, how do we provide opportunities for our students? School events. You will hear the word community initiative in school profile building, right? Your biggest community is the school. Engage your students in everything and anything that the school does, and go beyond. Create opportunities for them to be part of this community and serve this community first, right? Then they can think of saving the world. Okay, I'm sure when colleges are asking for community service, they're trying to figure out if a student has empathy, can do time management, and has done something beyond the classroom. They are not really looking for a cure for cancer from a student right now. In grade 12, another example, sorry, I'll just stick on this. Grade 12 psychology students, so they run workshops for grade 7th and 8th on topics like, menstrual hygiene, bullying, cyberbullying, because they talk better. A 7th and 8th grader is able to connect better with the 11th or 12th grader than with a 35 or a 40-year-old. They will be far more open. And we've seen a lot of improvement in student connect, in mental health issues. They have reached out to their seniors when they have been bullied, when they faced issues, rather than to the counseling center that we run in school. The counseling center or counselors can also become significant employment generators, by which I mean, so this is a school profile. I'm sure you know what a school profile is. This has been designed by my grade 12 students, right? They were given of course, they were given a format, they were given a sample, with the help of which every student created. So this design has been created by the most silent student of grade 12, someone who is very, very academic, doesn't have a lot of presence in any other co-curricular activity. If you come by and stop by my table today, you will see all the merch that is there on display are all courtesy student projects that we run in school. So from there is some awesome chocolate chip cookies, there are some soaps, there are some wax candles, there are some bracelets. Everything is student run, student initiative, because they are doing that either for their profile building or because they want to. If you provide them that platform and support in school, believe you me, they will not be looking for external help, because we have a large body within the school to support their initiatives. Yeah. Now I'll hand over to Dhani. Those were my examples, and now to Dhani.
Thank you. Okay, so now, as we learned in the entire session so far, the significance of integrating these counseling practices in school, right, for better learning outcomes. Then we learned about how we contextualize this so that we can have better understanding amongst the various stakeholders. That why are we really doing what we are doing? Student profile as a counselor, we understand, but as a teacher, do you think they'll understand why is it needed? They may not. They may say, "Padhai kar le, bas hai." Right? If the study is more than enough. So then it's very important to make them understand why is it so important and set a context amongst the various stakeholders. Even amongst parents, sometimes they'll be like, no, let him study, these extra things are not important, but it's important to make them understand, set a context. And then the last thing right now, as Shoma ma'am shared some best practices, how they've integrated various things with the students, amongst the teachers, so that there's a commonality in the practice in school. Not like if counselor is saying that, okay, build a school profile, design one, teacher will say do that later, first focus on your project. No, equally it's given importance, right? Now when we come to impact, right, how do we learn that all this integrated effort that you are taking or your school is taking and devoting time to it is successful or is at least effective, and in which ways, what is working out, what is not? How many of y'all have really given that much time in your school and done things for your students, for your parents, or to integrate even students? How many of y'all have really gone ahead and at least started some efforts? Yeah? Okay. Many of y'all. Whatever you have tried to plan, at least implement, even if it's gone that far, how do you know what has worked, what has not worked? Any one of y'all have tried to figure out? Anyone? No. Now that's where the catch is. Yes. Feedback from students. Okay. What next? Any feedback from the teachers themselves? Did this work for you? Do you have any ideas? Any other ideas? No. I think that's where the circle completes. Whatever we are doing at the end of it, if we kind of have a closer look and reflect on it, it's going to be better, because it shouldn't sound very repetitive. Even if it doesn't give outcomes, what's the point? Naturally, you're going to demotivate the teachers. You'll say, okay, let him do this, but there's no outcome they see. Then what's the point? They'll say, forget it. I think academics outcome we see, let's go for it. Okay, so let's focus on impact assessment. Some ideas, some steps that I can share with y'all, which you can take back and at least try. So again, the importance of impact is very relevant, because whatever you're doing at the end of the day, you should be aware that what is working out, what is not, and how we can modify it to cater to the needs, how it is. Okay, the first thing is, what is impact assessment? If someone has to tell me, what is it? Why do we do it? Anyone? To know if it has reached the outcomes that was planned, right? At least the goals that were planned, whether the outcomes are matching, right? So it's very important to understand, and what's the gap? That's even more important according to me, because then you know how to build that gap, right? Okay, why we do this? To understand how do we build the gap, right? Who all do you think we need to involve in this impact assessment? Very important. Is it only students' feedback that matters? Yes. Yeah, loudly. Parents, teachers, students, and people whom we want to deliver. Yes, very, very, very important. So, your parents, teachers, students, yes. School management, yes. Yes. And if at all, is it a third party involved? For example, community service. They're going out and doing things, right? But how is it done? What is the feedback? So, ideally, it can be a 360-degree feedback. Not only for those who are involved, but additionally, who's seen them do it, some feedback coming from them is very important, right? So, we know who all can be involved in this impact assessment. It could be a little extra responsibility at your end. Already you're doing so much in school, but if this circle is not complete, your practices, maybe you do the same thing, the next year, next academic year, a year later, gradually you will see that it's falling somewhere. So might as well keep upbeat. And we know this industry is ever evolving. The trends in the higher education in the industries are ever evolving. So we need to evolve with it. And if you don't do this, you'll see the gap building slowly, gradually. All right. And when do we do It's very important. When do you do this? When do you think you should do it? At the term ends, okay. Continuously means a little more, if you can tell me. As soon as the project gets over. So at the end of the project.
In between also, while doing the project also, because when we get the continuous feedback, so we will be able to make the changes as per the requirement of the students also.
But do you think, honestly, do you have the bandwidth to do that? See, we can plan and talk a lot. We can discuss a lot. Realistically, tell me what is doable. Yes.
Well,
Every fourth Friday.
Every fourth Friday.
Friday is considered auspicious.
Yeah, so monthly, but realistically, you know it's not possible. Quarterly?
What if we have different key points in the procedure, and then we just see if we have reached that particular thing and look for the gaps and make up for the gaps?
Okay. Yes, I think it's very important, but we come back to this how we do it. Yes.
if we include all these activities in a Monday morning assembly, that is a good point for a Friday one. That's an auspicious day of the week. However, I personally think Monday, depending upon the schools, we have got Monday morning assemblies where we are having 15-minute sessions to make our students realize the counseling sessions, mindfulness, student interaction, student collaboration. And I think counseling must start from grade. There's no grade, but again, for career counseling, it can start from 6 to 8 also, anything.
Yes. I agree that it should start early. But are we only assessing the impact of the counseling? No. At the end of it, you're learning outcomes, whether it's student learning or the teacher learning or the teacher doing something, whether she's comfortable or not, also. So I think I'll come back to what she said, that we can do it based on, I'll come to that part. How? Okay, we finish what, why, who, and when, and you know the points that are covered. Okay. Now, if you see how, coming back to her point, that is it just that how would you do it? For example, how would you take the feedback? How many of y'all have taken a feedback in a certain way? Can you tell me different ways of how you've taken? Yes. Google form. Anything else? We have to think beyond. Is it only that Google form and the data that helps? No. You take interviews. You can just have an open discussion and take a feedback. Right? I know recording could be an issue, but at least some feedback is got somewhere. Or you can structure it from a teacher, a generic open expression, a oral expression. So these are different ways in which the outcomes are
Helping the existing cohort.
Like I said, once at this point of the year, you have your alumni placed, all of them. You also have the next batch ready with their list of subject career options, colleges. It will take a little bit of work, but it is up to you to map. Share the names of the student that they can reach out to. They're anyway connected with.
I don't want to stop the flow. But yes, academic support, career guidance, and personal development are the key areas. There's lots of other things that you can include. All the other answers are not incorrect. It's just what are three key areas. How has the role of counseling in schools evolved over time? So from focusing solely on academic success, from focusing on career to academic support, from focusing personal development or sports coaching. You guys are so smart. So I would say the ones that are getting the most votes are great. So really, focusing on just academic success and really moving that into how can we support your careers and how can we support your personal development. And then finally, how does counseling enhance student self-awareness? Does it help by organizing extracurricular activities, understanding strengths and interests, focusing only on academic achievements, or by reducing the need for career exploration? Everyone is amazing. Very unanimous answer here. So Thank you for your time. I hope you learned a lot from the session. We'll be up here if you guys want to ask some additional questions. I know we didn't have a lot of time today. So, yeah, please. Yes. Thank you.
Could you all come in here? We want a group photograph with all of you. Yes. Background.
Yeah, yeah.
You come and help in information.
I'll get one of the student volunteers. Yes. We can.
So I think we'll just put one shoulder in and then
Come, everyone. Dhwani.
I'm here. Someone has to be here also.
Are measured by different and at different levels. So if you see the green graph at different levels, okay, the oral expression, this is just an impact shown, right? How they've done it, couple of ways in which we can do it. An open discussion area. Teachers, you could do a meeting with them and just ask them what worked or what not. You can sit down to, there are many activities through which you can collect feedback. You just don't need that Google form or a feedback form or something. Yes.
I just wanted to share that we're doing this exercise in our school. We are doing a counseling intervention for 4 weeks where we have laid down a proper structure as to what is going to happen in the week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And so we have only taken 30 students as a pilot project to see how the counseling intervention works. And these 30 students were interviewed the pre-survey, so the pre-selection. And after we'll be completing now, I think September, we are finishing our 4-week thing. We kind of missed out 2 weeks in between. Now, again, these are certain hindrances. As you said, realistically, things don't happen the way you have envisioned and you have laid it down on a paper, because there are a lot of school engagements that come into play. So we'll be completing it by September end. And then we are doing the post-interview of these children by the teaching faculty and the principal also. So that's where we'll be able to understand. It will be a takeaway for us as counselors as to whether this intervention worked for us or not. Are we going to continue in the same manner for the next batch? And there'll be a lot of input from the principal and the in charges also, because they are dealing with the children on day-to-day basis for a longer duration of time. and they can see the difference more than what we can see.
Correct.
So I think this is a process that we are following.
Exactly. Amazing. So ideally, I want to come back to this where we say that, for example, it's a process. It's not like end of the project, start of the project. It's a process. So and we're not looking at any specific outcome from a student. When we're talking about impact assessment, imagine there are a lot of dynamics. You're talking about a project. You're talking about student skills that they've learned. You're talking about how is it impacted them in their daily life, where their parents can see some change. So you're going to do that 360 feedback kind of a thing in different ways with different stakeholders, right? And at different, again, stages. So ideally it goes more individual to individual based on either project or your regular curriculum or your practice that you're doing in school. But what's really important is, yes, the pre and the post, like ma'am said, that's amazingly important, because you know where you stand and then where they've come. And if it's an ongoing annual thing, it'll be even better, because then you'll see the changes. It can't be just one project and you see a difference, right? And certain practices even in school with your teachers, right? When you build in your curriculum, when you're integrating it with their subjects as well. So you need that feedback from students at a different level for this specific thing. So again, it's really, like I said, various dynamics put in place, but start with basics so that then you can make it a complex web, that you see the, okay, this particular integration of subject teachers into career counseling has worked or not. So it's a little detailed analysis of um your practices to evaluate them and analyze them. But once you get started, you'll know where what you would want to know about. Like we say, we set some goals, objectives, we do the activities, basic lesson plan, right? We all have, right? And after that, what? So, like I said, we can't sit to do a project based or annual based. Even a basic lesson plan and activity based on, let's say, student profile building. We've taken that up. We're letting them do just that activity itself. How much is it that the kids have learned, and what is that they are taking back, right? Some of them just do this thinking, you will understand as an outcome, for example, that, oh, I mean, this was just to build my profile for application in this university, and let me do that. But ideally, then you know that the gap was missing in the, maybe the lesson, the way it was done, so you know you can do it further. Now similarly, needs the pre-survey. I'll give you an example. I had my first batch, which was fabulous. I mean, it was a smaller batch of 40-45 kids. Fabulous. I mean, they were so well planned and very proactive in their future in terms of higher education, what they want to do. And not in grade 11 or 12, but since 9th. Like, one of the kids were very clear, he was starting training in 9th standard up for JEE, right? By himself and his parents' guidance. Now the next batch that follows, right? I was looking at them in grade 9 generally, and when I talked to them, you won't believe, they didn't know what is BCom, they didn't know what is BA, they didn't know what the higher education degree is. And this was just an open conversation, my first session, just to understand where they are, so that I can build their sessions accordingly. And just, okay, what do you think of career counseling? What do you think it is? Just as basic as that. And you won't believe, there were this good 15% of a chunk who didn't know what bachelor's of arts is, or humanities is, or commerce is. That gave such an insight to me, because I had my certain plans that grade 9 will work on metacognition, that they can self reflect, understand self awareness, and all of that. Now, these kids didn't know what it's leading to. So, we had to build the gap way before. So, I had to tweak a little, do some extra bits for them. So, again, like I said, the needs and all of that is very important to understand where you're headed. And by the end of that year, where I got them to, whether what I had planned for the grade 9 as per my curriculum goal would be achieved with them or not, I got that sense earlier. All right. So these are the some ways that you could go in systematic ways to understand impacts. And then once you understand, there are various ways, again, the skills that they've learned, um, the level at which they should be aware. Even there are certain timelines, right? With where by the time high school students in 10th 11th, you want, every school will have their different things. By 12th or 11th, they should know what they want to do, and in a way have at least a list of places to apply to. So all of this goes as per the timeline, and this will help you. This is one kind of an assessment that a sample that I wanted to just show. A simple, you know, with a hands raise. Not all schools have Google Form facilities. You could do basic questionnaires and either give them ratings, either give them whether they've really agreed on certain, like your lesson plans, student profile. Some people you can just give them an open, open-ended question. What do you think? Is this important for this or is it beyond? So it's just a way to analyze that, oh, 60% of the class is saying that yes, student profile is only for application. You know your immediate impact, the way it's assessed of that session, you know what the outcome is. So how you want to tweak it? What do you want it to relay? Was that the importance of it, that do beyond, but how it's relayed. Last thing is simple steps that we follow for the impact assessment. I'll just quickly take you through. Um, Identify the area that you want to. So, like I mentioned, at different dynamics and different projects and annually, whatever, you identify the area, whether you want to measure student skills, whether you want to measure the effectiveness of that specific project in building the goals, achieving the goals. Based on that, the next one is outline assessment approach. Now, how do you want to do it, right? How do you want it to be implemented? At what intervals? Very important. And then you exactly determine the measures how you will do it. For example, like we mentioned, 360, right? So when you talk about this, whether it's a project for 3 kids or 30, if you want to get a feedback from students, ask them to do a creative, just a poster of how this process has been across, when they began, what did they feel in that process, where all they needed the help individually, and then at the end of it, what's the outcome, and 3 things that they take back, right? Similarly, you can have a discussion with parents, or you can send them a Google form that this is how we had done and this is what we want you to let us know that. And it could be again project based, it could be an open ended question just with 2 questions and let them write to you. Could be some close ended questions with some, like, do you see that this he's the child has become more decision, the decision making has become more fluent, depending on what the questions and what you're assessing, right? And with teachers, you can have an open discussion or you can have a continuous one. So every Friday, like it said, or Monday, whenever it suits you, the teachers could just do a 15-minute thing with that specific teachers relevant to that grade and tell us whatever you notice you want to tell us, or just write a mail if you don't have time to meet. Anything specific, let us know. So at least that we are collecting some kind of feedback based on that uh, project. All right, and the last thing is we identify the evaluation tools and resources. Sorry, I went the other way around. Identify the evaluation tools, like I mentioned. And the last one is, how do you really determine? So let's say, like I mentioned, that people will give you feedback from different directions. How do you collate it? Now that's very important. So for example, you believe in qualitative or quantitative assessment. It also depends. Not every assessment could have both, or not every assessment could be just quantitative. So it depends a lot on your matrix that you make. So again, developing a matrix is an additional step, but at least, like I mentioned about the lesson plan, simple. Profile building, 60% of your class, and this could be a last 2 questions in the end of your session. You don't need a Google form for it. Just the last 2 part. You can ask 2 questions, true or false, and you get some part of it, right? So for example, if I tell you all now, how many of you all have understood how to go about with impact assessment? Raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5 of y'all. So I know about 5-7% of y'all have got it. This is my impact that I take back. For example, I'm telling you. Now, how many of y'all are really motivated that let me at least give it a try? Okay, good amount of people. How many of y'all are seeing, and be honest, because I know I come from that background. Oh my God, I know it's good, but I don't think it's my cup of tea. I don't have that space at all. And I would raise my hand for that, to be very honest. I know it's very important, but I just don't have the space. The idea is I'm just taking that impact, my assessment of how the outcome is. Simple 2 questions. It didn't take more than 30 seconds. Got it? So it's your creativity, your idea of what you want to know from that specific way, how you want to do it, and how fluent you could get it, whether it's taking time to make the form, send it, people fill it, not fill it, and how you determine that data. I think I'm done here, and I'd like to call Shelly. We have 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So,
Okay. So I'm sure everybody is feeling a little empowered. So we are going to do an assessment like all teachers do. We are teachers at heart. Okay. But before we do the assessment, I want all of you to show us a rating. Okay. So how was this session for you? So if you really liked it, put 5. Everybody can raise 5, but you can do 4 as well. Great. So I want to see those 5s up. Okay, great. How many of you feel you're empowered to go back to your school and implement this? It's so easy. Great. How many of you feel that it's not really going to be that easy? Not that easy, but implementable? Yes, very much. Yes, I'm sure you all will be able to do it. And it's very easy. Why I'm saying that? Because we have worked on it. A simple example where you really don't need to spend extra time. A last example I'll give you is every student have to write an essay one way or the other. It's not that they have to apply in US and they have to write essay. What can be done as part of the regular curriculum in school? Simple. What can you do? You don't have to have an extra session for that. Your English teacher teaches them how to write an essay. Sure. Yes.
And then we have integrated it into main curriculum.
Same. Very simple. Very simple. And how do you assess that? Whether that has worked, and every child knows and is practicing from grade 9 to do that. So do you think the teacher, the student, both are relaxed by the time they have to submit? Because enough of drafts have been done, right? And the child knows what to write. And you've already assessed. Everybody needs marks for everything, right? Then only they do, and it's important. So make it possible. Simple things if you start implementing as a teacher. Now, don't think as a counselor, but think as a teacher and how you can bring things into your classroom. Look for events, like I told you, the Olympic events or projects. Every student in my grade 10 has to do a community project and have to design something. In last 6 months, 4 groups have already written 4 books in grade 10, right? So literature class or English class was boring. But while they did this, it became so interesting for them. And they started finding passion. Dying Art of Gujarat, and there's a book that they've designed. Mental health, and then they have a book that they've already written this. This is a simple assessment also whether whatever we are doing in class is meaningful for them or not. Those 40 minutes of our class is very meaningful, right? And we'll have to do that.